Welcome to another episode of Authentic Attraction, real stories about real love and real growth. So today we are super lucky. We have the amazing and beautiful and talented Laura Quick.
Hi, thanks.
Uh,
That's really sweet.
well, it's all true. I saw you on TikTok and I was just completely captivated and listening to you talk about trauma and your stories, and you're just so willing to be vulnerable. And I thought, well, that's somebody that people should definitely experience. A lot of the guests that I have on the podcast are single and they're going through that journey, right?
Yeah,
You've been single. You've been married how many times?
I had a couple accidental marriages. No, I joke. I have been married 4 times. I joke that I have had 3 divorces and only really one marriage because that's how it felt. I think I got married for a lot of the wrong reasons. I feel like a lot of people get married, especially if you're born and raised in the South like I was. It was like a rite of passage. You have to get married. But if you didn't have the right tools and no one guiding you and people really helping you understand what partnership looked like or what that would be healthily, you can make a lot of wonky decisions, which I did.
Sure. Well, it's funny, a surprising number of my clients are from the South. I guess there's a through line there somewhere. So, what do you think? You've done a lot of work personally, you've done a lot of personal development. So, in your mind, where did the trouble start with you and relationships and experience of love and things like that?
Well, I've had a ton of therapy. And I think that now, because I've been in therapy somewhere, one way or the other, for about the last decade, I started therapy in my early 30s. And I think I did that because I was just kind of sick of myself. Like, I was just like, ugh, I don't want to keep living this day, this year, this it was a cycle. And so I didn't really know how to stop it, or else I think, like most of us, we would, if we could figure out how to step outside of it, we would just do that. So I started therapy. And what therapy has taught me is that I'd love to tell you there was this one traumatic moment as an adult or even a young adult where something went terribly wrong. But I actually think these things come from our origin story. For me, that is what's true. If I look back at my life and understand that I dealt with a mother who abandoned me as a little girl, less than 2 years old, and a dad who had tons of his own struggles and was a workaholic and really loved women a lot. And also just a deep South kind of low middle class upbringing. I look back at my origin story and realize that I had a whole lot of pick me energy because it didn't feel like a lot of people were picking me. And I think that can manifest its way for me, I see it from my perspective, and I work with a ton of women. I run a multiple companies that are all female and have had just the honor and the privilege to walk through really hard times with close personal friends. But I tend to be the woman that people find and they're like, I'm trying to figure this out, help me. And I don't do that professionally. It's just something I'm really passionate about. But two schools of thought around that pick me energy, because maybe somebody wasn't picking you where you in the places where they should, right? We call
Hmm.
those holes and cracks in our foundation. Your
Okay.
foundational start, if you started from a place, and in essence, we kind of get here and the world says your mom and your dad should definitely want you. And if one of them doesn't, or maybe both of them in their own ways can't or won't pick you, then you tend to go prove to yourself that you're worthy of being picked. And so you either become the person who's like, pick me, or you love the pursuit of being picked and then you pull the ripcord and you're like, okay, now that I've been picked, let me get the hell out of here. And that was my story. I became the second one. I will be the most lovable, most charming, most easy to be infatuated with person. And then as soon as shit gets real, as soon as I think you might be close to knowing the real me, I got to get the hell out of here too.
Hmm.
And so that was really kind of my journey. If you're asking where my trauma came from and kind of how I became a woman who was perpetually either breaking up with someone or finding myself really single and unwilling to healthily attach to another person, that is where I've traced it back to.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, and it coincides well with, I mean, not well, but it's very parallel with my own experience. But we're here to talk about you, so
Well,
that's kind of a revelation. If your parents didn't choose you and you
Mhm.
grew up with that feeling, then you're going to, you see a lot of women, I think more than men, but women who are out there putting themselves on videos saying the people that I want don't want me, and the ones that I don't want really want me.
Mhm.
Well, do you think that that's part of that sort of pick me energy?
M- Maybe. I mean, I think I don't really know where that comes from. That's not necessarily something I've dealt with. I definitely picked the wrong people perpetually. But I think picking the wrong person normally means you're still the wrong person. So
Yeah.
I think that I don't think I really had a good baseline of how to pick someone healthy because I wasn't someone healthy.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that was my story. And I think that if you're hoping you can find a really healthy, grounded, emotionally developed person, then you also have to be those things. And being those things requires a shit ton of fucking, quite honestly, painful, terrible work. And most people are not willing to do the work that it takes to become a person that can attract the right level of health person in return. So there's that.
What were the things that was, like you said, you were attracted to the wrong people? What were the kinds of triggers that would attract you in that state?
I think that I was looking, and I hate saying this out loud because it sounds so cliche. This is like the 101 of what you wouldn't do, right? The 101 of what you wouldn't do is believe that another person could be making you fill in the blank, but let's just call it happy. I
Hmm.
just want someone to help me be happy.
Hmm.
And we know now, thank you, Disney, that that's not fucking true. And that's not actually possible. That no one is going to make me happy or make me fill in the blank. And so what I found was I was looking for someone that maybe in certain areas was just better than me, or maybe I thought this person will always be so confident because they're so successful, let's say. And so they won't be intimidated by me wanting to be successful. So this is going to be a great partnership, which is so stupid. Like, how do you know that? Just because someone's successful has no bearing on whether or not they're insecure or not, or what they're looking for in a partner. Someone can be wildly successful, and because of that and what it took to become that, may want someone else to stay really small because they really enjoy being very big. But I would just look at these very surface things and say, like, oh, clearly this is going to be a great fit, right? And so I was choosing based on the top of the funnel ideas, right?
Right.
Like, oh, do we have fun together? Are they successful? Will they be okay with me being successful? Okay, cool. Those things are jiving, and um, now I realize that those topical things, they're great. Like, I know I've heard you talk about it before. Like, a man needs to be attracted to a woman. A woman needs to be attracted to a man. I mean, there
Sure.
has to be a level of attraction. That is important. However, it's just one of many things that are really important and there's got to be depth. So when you're looking for real long-term partnership, you're looking for depth. And I never got there. The reason is because I was 2 inches deep. So how could I ever get below that? Because I didn't have enough. I was too scared to get to know myself to even figure out how could I healthily partner? What are my triggers so that I know not to go find somebody with the same damn triggers as me so we don't murder each other, right?
I always encourage women to have standards, right? But
Hmm.
by standards, I mean somebody who will meet you, somebody who will stand up for you, somebody who will show up for you, somebody who has integrity. I don't mean a fucking laundry list of items for you to check off
Right.
and go, oh yeah, this is the right person. No, that's not the right person, right?
No,
Like
right.
you you may meet somebody who drives you crazy, who, but there's something about them that you just can't. get out of your brain. And there's something
Mhm.
so magical about them for you and only you that you just have to have that person in your life. That's not a bad reason to be with somebody. If they meet you, if they show up for you, if they have integrity, other than attraction, the only two other real things are, does my association with you make me want to be a better man? And
Mhm.
when the shit hits the fan, because it always does in life, are you a good person to be in the foxhole with, right?
Yeah, and I think we talked about that when we were on the phone. I think what I've learned over the last decade or so, probably 14 years through therapy and just really healthy community and being around people with successful long-term relationships and partnerships, is that one, you don't have to be perfect, like, because that's not even a real thing, right? You don't have to go get all your shit together before you meet the person you want to partner with in life, or a person you want to partner with for a while in life. I think that what you do have to do is you have to know yourself. You've got to figure out how to be intimate with yourself before you can ever figure out how to be intimate with someone else. And there may be some areas where you're still figuring that out, but I would say the core of that is you got to know who you are and what you believe in before you can successfully even attract someone that's going to be able to mesh well with that. And I think that I call it like floating. I was doing a ton of floating through life and I had nothing really that I was anchored to. So when you talk about standards, I don't even think I would really know how to build those standards back in that time because I didn't have them for myself personally.
Hmm.
So if I don't even have standards I'm trying to live up to, and I would say standards are, there's two different ways to look at this. Some people would say like standards are, they're not aspirational. Standards are the foundation of how you live. If someone was to come in and observe your life over a month, your standards would be the things that you consistently do because it's who you are. So if you are consistently a person who treats everyone kindly, you would see that over a month. That would be a standard. If you are consistently a person who says what you're going to do and then you do it, that is a standard. So I am a person who's honest even when it sucks. I lied for a really long time out of survival, and now I just say the fucking truth. And you don't have to like it, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to be kind how I deliver it, but I'm always going to tell the truth because the alternative is I feel like shit and yucky. I like to treat everybody like they're somebody, and you would see that about me if you observe me over time. I like to be the type of person that does what the hell I told you I was going to do when I told you I was going to do it, or that I communicate with you in advance that I can't do the thing. And so I think our standards are foundational. And if you don't have those clearly outlined and you haven't named them about yourself, it'll be really hard for you to decide. But what is actually important in a partnership? Like you said, I want someone, and now I've married someone that, like, I just want him to show up the way he said he would show up. And if he can't show up in that way, to tell me, to give me a
Right.
heads up. And I think a lot of women don't know themselves well enough to even know what to ask for or what to look for in a healthy partner. Because if someone came in and evaluated your life, what would they say were your consistent standards over a month? Would you be proud of them?
Hmm.
And if you wouldn't, maybe work on those things before you even start looking for a partner. Because like I said, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to have standards.
Whenever somebody said it yesterday, it was one of my favorite people who basically watches every video I make. She's like, I'm healed. I'm like, you're healed? Like all the way healed? I don't think so. She's like, no, 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 not all the way.
No.
But so interesting that you mentioned this, because knowing yourself is, this for me is the big journey, right? Knowing yourself and knowing where you're coming up short and what you need to work on. This just happened to me. Like before we got on this call, I met somebody and we were supposed to go out and got my signals crossed. And she's like, well, you didn't communicate. I said, yeah, I know. I'm working on that. I'm getting better at it. She's like, you're a fucking dating coach. I'm like, okay,
You know that means you're supposed to be perfect,
right,
Brett. You can't be a dating coach and not be perfect. What the hell?
right. I said, I get it. I said, I raised my hand. I fucked
Mm.
up. But it's something that I'm working on, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that's the other thing about knowing yourself. So standards are just those things that you do consistently over and over again. And I think the other thing that I've learned over time is that then my core values come into play. And that has a little bit more to do with my belief system. Like, what do I believe? And I think that you don't have to believe the same thing as your partner. I was married for 3 years and my husband told me something like alarming about his belief system that I was like, I mean, it was like a stop the car, are you fucking kidding me moment where I was like, how did I not know this? And, it didn't really change anything other than I just didn't know that. And I was like, that's weird. And I didn't know you believed that. But it was cool to know that. And so I think that it's also important that people know. And this is a thing that I see women do all the time. I've got to find somebody that checks these exact boxes and they believe exactly what I believe and they live exactly how I live. And it's like, oh my God, well, then you're not going to get it. Or
Right.
you're going to constantly be disappointed because, I know for sure I'm not perfect. And when I say like, know yourself, I realize I am constantly unearthing a new part of myself that I didn't know existed. And the version of me that met my husband 10 years ago, well, I guess 11 as of May, is a totally different girl. Like I'm a totally different woman now. And now there are some fundamental things that are still very true about me.
Hmm.
That are those things that this is who I am. And this is kind of how I live. And I'm still kind to people and I still make room for people. And I want everybody to feel welcome and I'm hospitable and all those things. But like, as a businesswoman, I'm very different. My belief system has changed and evolved. I've unlearned a lot of things that I thought were true I always say like truth is forever. Facts fucking change. Like new data comes out all the time about myself, about other things. And so I think that it's really important as women, and this is something I had to learn that you're not looking for perfection. You're looking for someone who's similar to you in the way that they're willing to live and evolve. If you are a person who rapidly learns and evolves and all of those things, you shouldn't find someone who's so routine and is rigid in their belief system and doesn't leave any room for, maybe I've never thought about it that way.
Right.
And I think rigidity and lifelong learners, those are diverging paths. They don't go together. They can't run along the same path, but finding someone who is a learner, if you're a learner, finding someone who is innately kind and wants to believe the best about other people, if that's who you are, you probably don't need to marry someone or be in a partnership with someone who's just always thinking someone's out to get them because that is going to be a rub forever. But I
Yeah.
don't know. These are just the things that I had to learn about myself that what is attractive on day one, you learn a hell of a lot about somebody in 90 days.
Sure.
And so
I just,
if you can give it some time, boy, you'll really learn.
that's the thing. I just don't think it should be black and white. You know what I mean? It's like if you are stuck on the black and white, and I'm just going to go back to this thing that I already mentioned. She's like, well, I have a strict policy that I'm with a man who can take charge and make the reservation and do this and do that. And I said, I made the fucking reservation. I said, I knew exactly where we were going. I suck at communicating and I'm working on it. But all that is to say that, what you were talking about, if somebody believes the thing are black and white, and
Mhm.
that's the way it's got to be. Well, if you're committed to growth, then that's not going to work.
And it doesn't matter how attractive you are to them. It will be the eternal diverging path. And like we talked about, I believe great partnership is finding the person you can have fun with almost anybody, especially if you're lighthearted. I'm just like a really flexible, I could probably get along with a brick wall, right? But at the end of the day, I can have a good day with almost anyone, even negative Nancy's, I can figure out how to pull them on. But I want to find a partner that I can have the literal worst days of my life. Who do I want to go to battle with? Not against. Who do I want to go to battle with? When life gets really hard, will this person be able to hold space for you in a way that is kind?
Hmm.
when it's really shitty. If you lose a baby, or you lose a parent, or you lost your job, or your kids are off the freaking rails. Like, those are the things that, even if you're later in life and you're starting over and you're post divorce or post several divorces, like I've been before. I mean, the thing is like you have to shore up, one, yourself mentally. You need to be in a stable place. That does not mean you're perfect, but it means you're working on it, like you said, Brett. The second thing is, do you have standards? Do you really know the standards you're holding yourself accountable to? Because if you're not doing that for you, how on earth will you be able to do it for anyone else? And then those third things is like, when you do start looking, you need to look for somebody not short term, wow, this person's attractive, they're professional, they've got their shit together, they make good money, all these vapid things. No, no. If you have an attraction, lean in, ask good questions, observe. It's like me, I don't hire anyone without watching how they drink. I want to know, are you going to make an asshole of me and of yourself when you're representing me and on behalf of me? I want to know that. It's the same thing that you find out when you give yourself a little bit of time. So I always tell women, don't make really big sweeping decisions about a partnership for 90 days. You don't fucking know. You're in the infatuation stage in that place.
Dating is really easy. Dating is, oh, I can show up, I can show you a good time, take you out to dinner, we'll have a few laughs, we'll have some wine or whatever, and that's the easy part, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was with somebody last year, and I'm a big supporter of my son, emotionally, physically, financially. Like he's 23 years old, but I stand behind him no matter
Right.
what, right? That's my family. And like after 30 days or so, she was kind of like reading me the riot act. I was like, I said, "Are you serious? Is this a joke? I know you a month, and you're trying to get between the most important thing to me." My family. I was like, you're never going to win.
What were her reasons?
What he was trying to do was unrealistic. I said, great. I said, he's 23 years old. I said, good for him that he can be unrealistic at this point in his life.
Well,
And
and when is the best time to be to go after something audaciously? Would you want we want to wait until he's too old?
exactly. I said, plus anybody who's ever done anything great, people have said, you're crazy. Nobody's done that before. So it just went like what you were talking about. Like I knew in that moment that the days were numbered because there's no coming back from that. Like it's so part of who I am. You know what I mean?
That's a
Like,
standard. Like, one of your own values is that you deeply care and you want to be supportive of your son. And so because you know that value is so strong, someone who wants to step in between you and what you believe is fulfilling that value is a no-go. You immediately are like, oh, this will be a hard partnership. It doesn't mean you couldn't do it. It means that that would be a rub, an unnecessary rub, because partnerships are really hard.
yeah.
Some things we cannot avoid. You can't avoid losing someone you love or falling on hard times. Sometimes that just happens. So those are the things that don't really push against your core values. But when somebody's pushing against your core values in the first month, they don't like it, and that's just how you live. mm, it's a red flag.
Gigantic. And I'm a big you can do anything person, right? Like I was a high school dropout, drug addict. And at 19, I applied to the best film school in the country and somehow got in and became a movie director, right? Like if you had told the drug addict 16-year-old who dropped out of high school, you're going to be a successful movie director, like people would say you're out of your mind.
Yeah, that
But
script wouldn't fly, but it does. It did. And so why not be audacious in how you're going after life? It's
yeah,
beautiful
so,
for you to support your son that way.
thank you. Yeah, it's just a non-starter. If you talk about somebody's kids in a negative way, it's just a non-starter.
I agree. And again, that goes down to like how much equity, how many deposits have you put into the relationship bank account? If you've been with someone for 6 months and you see a reoccurring, maybe a parent's being taken advantage of, or your partner's getting taken advantage of by their kid over and over again, and it's like a reoccurring theme, then maybe you have enough relational equity in the account that you can say, hey, I need to write a check out of here. I'm observing this behavior and I'm feeling protective over you. And I want
Right.
to make sure your eyes are open to this. But that's a different, again, that takes time. You don't get to do that in a month.
I'm still learning, right? And one of the biggest learning moments for me is learning that the couples that tend to stay together are the ones that argue to understand each other, not to win the argument. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, that's interesting. Okay, so back to you. So now you've been married to your husband for 10 years.
No, we've been together for 11 and we've been, well, I guess not really quite 11. We've known each other for 11 years and we've been together for about 10.
Okay.
And then we've definitely loved each other for 10. And then we've only been married for 7.
Okay. And so along the way, there must have been those sort of look yourself in the mirror moments where you're like, okay, this is where the old Laura would have cut and run, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, so many. Definitely. And there were definitely some moments. There was a lot going on though. When we first got together or when we were getting to know each other, we were really different people. He was like deep into a faith walk. I really didn't believe in anything other than me, the secret. I read a book. I was like, this is great. Write it all down. Believe it's going to happen. It's going to be awesome. And he was deep into his faith, and that was kind of scary. And honestly, I remember this one time he called me and he was like, listen, I noticed that you posted a picture of you drinking wine, and like, if we were ever to date, like, you just couldn't do that. And I was like, well, that's fucking simple. We're not going to ever date because I'm gonna definitely post and now that was a long time ago and he would never say anything like that now, which just kind of shows you how people evolve and grow depending on how their brains work and how they see the world. But at that time, we barely knew each other. He didn't know my whole story. And he was nervous about me drinking wine on the internet. Are you fucking kidding me? That's the least of your worries, sir. Wait till I tell you how many times I've been married. You want the internet to know that? I don't think so. I remember that so vividly because it prompted me to kind of spill my guts to him. And I was like, listen, if that stresses you out, you probably just need to get on out of here. And this is what I think a lot of women do with really good humans that they're
Hmm.
like, because my belief about myself was a really great guy would not want to be with me if he knew all these terrible things about me.
Hmm.
And so that moment of me being like, let me give you this get out of jail free card so you can get the hell out of here and move on, actually ended up being this really powerful connection point between us because I was like, hey, here's these things. And he was like, listen, shame is like shit on your shoes. And like, God just doesn't want you walking around like that. And just because that's who you were doesn't mean that's who you have to be. And that compiled with a lot of other things. Now, again, I have a therapist friend that I do a podcast with called Before You Cut Bangs. And we talk all the time. There's this big debate in the therapy world of like, do you have to love yourself before you can love someone else? Or is it sometimes that people loving you teach you to love yourself?
Hmm. Interesting.
And I think she believes that sometimes you can't love yourself first. Sometimes somebody comes along and they love you in a way that teaches you to love yourself better. And I would agree with that. I think that that's what happened to me. But I also think a lot of that happened because I was doing work already. I was in therapy. And so all these perfect storm of things were happening, right? I'm meeting this guy who's like, hey, that's shame. And it'll be really hard for you to ever move above it as long as you feel that about
Hmm.
yourself, about your story. Simultaneously, I was starting a company where literally my job was to tell people's authentic stories, which was hilarious because I didn't know how to tell my own story authentically. I'd been lying for so long to just survive and so people wouldn't throw me away. And then that third component of just like, okay, I'm doing therapy and I'm hearing over and over again, like, hey, of course you made those decisions. Look at where you came from. Look at how you were treated. Look at what was played out for you on repeat. Of course you ended up getting married and divorced 3 times. Collectively, your parents have been married and divorced 8 or 9 times. Like,
Wow.
so, you know, what did that make you believe about marriage? Well, very disposable. I never entered into a marriage until my current marriage that I didn't think, well, I could just get a divorce. No big deal. It was always like, there's a get out of jail free card here. If I don't like it, I'll just burn it the fuck down. And I did. And so I think that I remember that so vividly because it was a big turning point for me. And that idea that while I was learning to love myself, someone else was also saying, hey, I see you right where you are. And I already am a big fan.
All right. That's powerful. So for me, the thing that I've been kind of wrestling with as far as therapy goes is, I've done a lot of therapy that kind of brings you back to the moment, right?
Hmm.
Brings you back to the trauma. I did 2 years of EMDR, doing something recently where you're visualizing all that, the trauma in your head. I was carrying around pictures of myself as a little boy, the little boy who was hurt and, healing your inner child and all that crap. And I had the revelation, the realization that okay, that part's over. I don't want to live in those emotions, right? Like if you're creating your reality with your emotions, and there's a whole lot of evidence to that, right?
Hmm.
Why would I ever want to go back and experience those emotions again? I felt them the first time.
Yeah.
I just don't see the wisdom in me telling the 5-year-old version of me, it's okay, it's going to be okay, you're going to be good. Like, I
Well,
don't know.
I'm a big fan of experiential therapy. I think it works really, really well. If you've never done that and you're in therapy, I strongly suggest you ask a therapist about it because the thing about our brains is our brains don't know the difference between past and present. We can rewrite our story at any time. When you can go back to the 5-year-old little boy, and maybe the reason you have to carry the 5 or the 8-year-old version of yourself around so much is that maybe there was so much trauma there, he still doesn't believe you. But that version of you does still exist. And as long as he's not driving the car, then we're probably all pretty safe. But if he gets in the driver's seat and starts fucking barreling over humans on the sidewalk, we're in big trouble, right? And so, this idea of carrying around that version of ourselves, of course, sometimes we get to leave them where they were because they feel safe because we've rewritten enough of those stories. So when you're doing experiential therapy, you're going back into that part of your story and you're having a conversation and you're shoring up what was broken, what was missing, what are those holes, those cracks that that little boy didn't have, that little girl didn't have, that she needs to hear. Well, the stable adult mother version of me can easily mother the parts of myself that were unmothered. But you're right. I think that in my experience, there's a time to go back and take care of shit and have some conversations and shore some stuff up, of course. But there's also a time to say, hey, that I might always walk with a little bit of a limp.
I
And
think
maybe the limp is so that I can help other people. Maybe it starts the conversation. Maybe you go, hey, I noticed you're limping. What's going on? And you go, oh, well, you wouldn't fucking believe what I've been through.
hmm.
But now look at me, right? So, like, I think you just have to use your discernment when it's time to put the little boy back and be like, hey, man, you're good. You're safe. You're good. And you're in the back seat. You're buckled in. You're in a little booster. I got it. I'm driving us. We're
Yeah, I kind
cool.
of feel like I'm there. Have you done EMDR?
I chose not to. It's been
Okay.
offered to me, but I didn't really want to.
Okay. I did it for 2 years and look, it's traumatic. I mean, you're literally back at the event. And I would leave those sessions a lot of times in tears, really kind of shaken up because I was
Of
back at the
course.
moment. But
Yeah.
at this point, I feel like life is in front of you. Life is in front of me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I say trust the process. If something's coming up, it means you got to work on it. If it's not coming up, you're good. Don't go digging around in the past looking for shit to fix. Like, are you kidding me? We've already been there. We don't have to go back there.
Yeah.
But if it's coming up, or if you have some sharp edges that you keep stabbing the shit out of people you care about with, you need to work on that. But if you're not, and the car's safe, you're driving it and nobody's getting killed and you're keeping it between the lines and you're not hurting the people that you care for that you're doing life with, that's great.
Do you have single girlfriends who talk to you about their dating experience?
I do. My sister, well, she's married now, but I've seen her walk through singleness. My best friend in the entire world has been single for the whole time that I've been married up until the last couple of months. She just started dating someone and really
Mhm.
was very selective, only dated one guy post her divorce. The girl I do the podcast with, I watched her dating in the dating scene. I mean, honestly, finding a good partner these days is like, catching the last helicopter out of Nam. It's like, holy shit. And most of that is because I think all the things that made it great to meet people have been replaced by artificial connection.
Mhm.
So, you
True.
know, if we're relying on something that's fake to connect us, then it'll be really, really difficult. It just makes it so much harder to make real connections when we're starting out with so much that's separating us.
Right. When I was in college and after, we would just go out and you wouldn't text your friends or what you were doing or anything. You'd just go out and you'd run into some people that you know and you'd meet people that you didn't know, and it was all
Right.
like part of the experience. So in the past, up until 2003, I think, 60 or 70% of couples met because of proximity. They met through a friend, they met through a work connection, they met through somebody who knew somebody. And
Hmm.
now it's completely gone the other way where 80 something percent of couples meet here.
But for the most part, it's a completely different environment because it all happening on the phone. The other thing is you can do a deep dive research project on someone before you ever meet them, which I think is great and terrible. It's both, right? It's
Yes.
like it's awesome, except for my favorite characteristic about a human. I mean, the people that I want in my life are curious. They ask good questions. So if you walk into something and you feel like you know everything, you're not even trying to get to know the person because you think you did a research project that you got an A+ on and you're not doing that. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I think is like really messed up is so you walk in, you're not curious. And the other thing is you've connected so much digitally that you ran out of all the cool stuff to talk about when you are together. So you burn through all the cool moments that you could have getting to know somebody because why? Because you were bored and you wanted that dopamine hit on a text message? I don't know. That seems shitty. I tell my friends, all of these young girls that work for me that are dating, I'm like, do not text too much. If you're going to do something, hop on a phone call, FaceTime, do something like that, but do not be over texting. Text funny stuff, text flirty stuff, text I'm thinking about you, but don't go deep diving in text messages. That sucks.
It's a lousy way to get to know somebody. It really is. And I mean, experiences are so much more, first of all, important for you, and second of all, enjoyable, right?
When you're with someone, like really with them,
Hmm.
having a glass of wine,
Hmm.
eating a great meal, and laughing your ass off, or having a great, deep, meaningful conversation with someone, or hearing a story from their childhood that you resonate with, or that you feel compassion over. Like, there is just nothing that I feel like can replace that. But I think so much of that is happening in text format now that you're missing the opportunity to really connect, to put your hand across the table and be like, man, that sounds hard. Or touch their arm and go, that's fucking hilarious. I'm dying. Like, don't give up those moments. And I think as women, because of what the internet has done to us, like the dopamine hit you're getting if you get a like on a photo or a comment or whatever, you're looking for that. My encouragement to you is get that somewhere else. Get
Hmm.
it somewhere else. Do not do that prior to going on a date, and leave some mystery. God, everybody loves a little bit of mystery. If you tell it all, I mean, first, that's called trauma bombing. Don't fucking do that. It's bad. And it's a way to love bomb or trauma bomb someone to feel a sense of connection that is absolutely vapid and not real and fleeting. But
Hmm.
it makes them feel indebted to you and you feel connected to them. They feel connected to you. And then all of a sudden, that's what you're anchored in. So instead of authentically connecting with someone, you connect based on telling them something that honestly might overwhelm them. If I told somebody my whole story on a first date, they would, well, I could tell you what they want. They want to marry me, to rescue me. And I did that. And it was so stupid and really vapid. And honestly, then it put me in a position that I didn't necessarily want to be in long term. And it wasn't emotionally authentic because I did it out of, I don't even know what. I don't know where
Mm.
that came from.
Well, a desire to be loved, a desire to be seen.
100%. But
Yeah,
there's alternatives. You don't have to roll
sure,
it all out there on the first couple dates.
sure. And it's all built on no. I mean, the whole apparatus is built on no, right? There are a
Hmm.
thousand reasons to say no. But if you met somebody, none of those reasons to say no yet exist,
Yeah,
right? Like if you meet somebody, well, there may be a big yes. There might
right.
be, you never know.
I tell women this too, by the way. My best friend, when she was just kind of going on dates or trying to kind of roll back out, and she didn't do apps because she just felt so weird about it.
Hmm.
And so it was really hard for her because, like, then she had to rely on us, like all of us born in the 1900s that still know how to be like, wait, I did meet somebody. Maybe you should go on a date with him. And I think that one of the things that I was encouraging her, because she would go on a date and she'd be like, nah. And I'm like, you can't do that. You can't go on one date and go, nah. You have to, I mean, unless there were like some for real red flag energy, you have to go on another date. You have to. Like if there was three redeeming qualities in the person, they were kind, they made you laugh, you were attracted to them, go on a second date. I'm not saying lead them on. I'm saying first dates are really freaking tough. Like, we're nervous. We send in our representative. Do they smell good enough? Are they making good enough conversation? There's all this energy that you're dealing with that, like, you don't really get to know a person on your
Yeah,
first date. It's so hard. And maybe if you're like Brett, you're a professional and so you're just like killing it in the dating game, but most men aren't that. And I think that you should at least please go on a second or third date with somebody if you think there's any chance that they're a good human and they would be able to run a race with you.
absolutely. Yeah, no, by no means I'm killing it. I was married for 13 years and I've been single now for 15. And I've wanted to get married again, right? So it's not like I'm not looking. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I'm killing it.
So okay, wait. Then why are you too picky? What are you doing out there? What's going on with that?
I mean, different times were different things. I mean, I got into a relationship when I first got divorced, and my son got caught in the crosshairs, and he was 5 years old, and it hurt him. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. And so I chose inappropriate partners for a period of time because I knew that I was never going to give them my time or my energy or allow them to get close to my family, right?
Mm. Do you
Um,
regret that?
no,
So you don't feel like you wasted anything during that season?
no.
Okay.
I had fun. I've basically been learning how to be a man my whole life, right? And so th being a dad, being a single dad, like that was a big journey for me. And I had to figure out how to do that first.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole relationship thing came much later. I had no real interest in it until he went to college, which was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So until then, I was just kind of messing around, like, okay, yeah, this is fun for a while.
Hmm.
I'm not the fastest learner, you know what I mean?
What? Okay. So on learning, this is my favorite question to ask these days.
Okay.
What are you outside of your communication skills? What are you learning right now?
I'm learning that I should not entertain things that have no chance of being long term. as far as dating and relationships goes, because that's where you get into regret and wasting people's time and wasting my time, and it's not worthwhile. So I'm only focusing on situations where I feel like it could blossom into something long term. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
that's
Okay.
awesome.
So look, knowing what you want is the big thing.
Hmm.
It's really the big thing. And I don't have a long list, and I don't know what it looks like, but I know what it doesn't look like. And so it's easy to say, you know what? That's not for you. If that means I'm alone, then I'm alone. But, you know,
I think that's actually probably another thing that I never did that I'm glad that I learned to do is most people know what they want more of. Most people never take the time to ask themselves what they want less of or what feels way too heavy to tolerate. And I think, especially as women, because I mean, I think most of us are geared to be a bit more on the people pleasing side of things, especially if we're Southern, you know. And when you don't edit, when you don't decide what you can live with less of or eradicate from your life, then what ends up happening is you always feel heavy and overwhelmed. But I would say that is something I'm learning. Subtracting is a good thing.
mhm.
Most people always know how to add, but they don't know how to subtract. My husband says that all the time. He's like, God, they're good at adding because they'll be talking about a business thing and whatever. And he's like, wow, they really know how to add, but they don't know how to subtract. And I think the same thing goes for us as people,
Hmm.
that we're really good at adding things up, but we don't remember to subtract the right things. And you can't really add valuable things to your life without omitting something because we do have capacities, especially if we want to show up in a really good, healthy way for others and for ourselves. And so I'm learning about editing. What can I, what can I say no to so I can make room for the right things?
Okay. And so there's some scientific evidence now that as women get into their 40s and 50s, is that their hormones even out and they become less people pleasing, less agreeable. Do you find that happening for you, or is it?
I will say that in my 30s, I actually did a lot of work. I think being an entrepreneur and a single mom really made me less of a people pleaser, except for a handful of people, right? I don't know that if you're geared that way, I don't know if you ever really get over being a people pleaser. But I will say there's just like less than this many people that I would people please for. And now I'm weighing it, right? So, what, and people pleasing is different than being flexible and accommodating. And I think that people pleasing is depleting yourself to make sure other people are okay. And what I knew and what I learned in my 30s through the pandemic is that if I'm not okay, fucking nobody's going to be okay.
Hmm.
So I got to be okay. I don't struggle with people pleasing as much, but I do think it's something that lives inside of our culture. And there's an expectation of women to be wildly agreeable. And I think your superpower is actually knowing how to effectively disagree and hold your ground and still be soft, which is possible, but it's just not modeled often.
No, it's not. It is possible. I'm really good at being disagreeable. I need to learn the other side. I asked
Well,
my,
you're just made to see where the opportunities are. And I think
okay,
sometimes that makes us good at being disagreeable.
that's a nice way to look at it. I will say I have softened.
They say that happens to men as well.
For sure. For sure. Well, okay. So the name of your podcast is Before You Cut
Before you
Bang?
cut bangs, which was actually just kind of a joke because I have had a couple faux pas with my hair throughout my life. And I always tell women, I'm like, unless you can send me a photograph where you really believed you looked hot with bangs, it's a fucking no. Do not do it. I'm not saying there aren't women that can pull off bangs because there are and they're gorgeous. I am not one of them. I look like a 12-year-old boy. I look like I need to be rescued. And so I named it that just because I thought it was funny.
Uh-huh.
And it's a phone a friend moment for sure if you're thinking about doing something weird to your hair.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm
Hmm.
so grateful to have met you, to know you. I don't like many people, but I like you, Laura, so that's a
Ah,
good thing.
I'll
And I'm
take it.
I'm grateful that you did the podcast. And I always love your videos on TikTok.
Likewise, I love what you're doing. I mean, listen, I think that having a man's perspective on how we get to show up in the world, it's like everything else. I'm glad I found you. It was like a random thing, but it's really nice to connect, and I'm glad that you're doing this podcast, and I can't wait to listen.
Thank you, and thank you for showing up. I'm so grateful that you made it. Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Attraction. If today's episode resonated, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And remember, love isn't about settling or chasing. It's about redefining what true connection means for you. For more tips and tools to attract high-value partners, visit my website, AuthenticAttraction.net. Until next time, stay true to yourself and your vision for love. I'm Brett Parker.